Welcome back to the Bitewing Games podcast, a podcast all about board games, and two dentists who love board games so much that they also publish some. But are we really here at the Bitewing Games podcast, or are we at the train station? That's right. Let's hop on the hype train of the 22 most anticipated board games of 2022. My name is Nick Murray. I'll be your conductor. All aboard! With all the most anticipated games of 2022 lists I've seen over the past few weeks, it feels like Bitewing Games is a little late to the party. On the other hand, I've been surprised to see very little overlap between my list and the many others out there. So today it is my honor to shine a spotlight on many promising and possibly overlooked titles. From quick, simple card games to sprawling legacy games. From loud, hilarious party romps to tantalizing expansions. My most anticipated board games of 2022 list covers the entire spectrum of exciting upcoming releases. And these are just the ones we know about so far. For your convenience, I've organized these in chronological release date order, assuming the release dates don't change. So, without further ado, we are going to start off with Caesar, Seize Rome in 20 minutes. And the expected release date for that is right now. Well, it appears that Caesar being on our 2021 holiday board game gift guide was wishful thinking. But now that this promising war game is finally starting to show up on shelves and doorsteps, it feels like second Christmas. Don't be surprised if this one ends up claiming the title of Best Two-Player Game of the Year. Father Palomori and the older sibling to Caesar, Blitzkrieg, are that good. Why is this game exciting? Well, tense, bitey, tug-of-war games frequently hit the spot for me. While this one isn't as blatant of a tug-of-war as Blitzkrieg, it still appears to capture a similar essence. It also gives me faint vibes of another classic tile-laying game, Samurai. Those two bangers are very good company to be in. Next hotly anticipated game, Ghosts of Christmas, which has an expected release date of February 2022. Thanks to clogged ports and delayed shipments, some of the games here are spillover from last year's most anticipated board games list. Ghosts of Christmas is the first in a trio of games that Board Game Tables launched on Kickstarter last year. Sadly, this game may have just missed Christmas 2021, but I suppose it's not a big deal because here you'll be able to time travel as you play tricks in the past, present, and future. Why is it exciting? Well, Board Game Tables has developed a new hobby of unearthing bizarre Japanese designs and bringing them to a wider Western audience. Folks like me who love wonky card games should have this one on their radar. So following that thread, next game is Bear Raid, which has an expected release date also of February 2022. Game 2 from the Board Game Tables trio is none other than Ryan Courtney's Bear Raid. Fun fact, Ryan told me that he's not a big fan of games where players can mess with each other's plans, and Bear Raid is exactly this kind of game. So he basically designed a game that he personally is not into. How about that? The important thing here is that Ryan's playtesters love this stock investment romp, and it is whimsically illustrated by Nick Nazzaro. I was born ready for this one, yet for those who are hoping for a more warm and welcoming game from Ryan, we've actually got you covered there. More on that later. Why is Bear Raid exciting? I love a good interactive game where you can bet on or invest in various options, whether it's a horse, a camel, a battalion, or a company. The moment you feel personally invested in a thing's success is the moment where the excitement begins. Next game on the list, Factory Funner, which also has an expected release date of February 2022. I've never associated factories with the adjective fun, but this final game in the Board Game Tables trio is poised to change all that. I recently shared my top 10 spatial puzzle games, and Factory Funner made that list thanks to a questionable combination of gut feeling and critical acclaim. Why is Factory Funner exciting? Well, the crunchy spatial gameplay, the stylish art, the flexibility of tile arrangements, and the quick playtime all speak to me in this updated version from BoardGameTables.com. Next, let's talk about one that's really flown under the radar so far, Soundbox from Horrible Guild, which has an expected release date of March 2022. I'm not sure which is more surprising, the implication that Horrible Guild needed to take Soundbox to Kickstarter, or the fact that it only raised 12,000 euros. I wouldn't be surprised if they spent roughly that much just to market the game. What a depressing thought. Of course, launching a party game during COVID may have had something to do with that. Regardless, I've got my money on this game being a hoot. Literally, I'm a backer, and gaining a second wind once it hits tables. The design team behind The King's Dilemma and Railroad Inc. have created a game where players must cooperate to listen to each other's weird sounds in a quest to pick out the right topic cards. Imagine codenames where the clues are a chaotic jumble of simultaneous noises and you're basically there. Why is Soundbox exciting? Well, also imagine your partner, sibling, parent, or friend trying their best but epically failing to recreate the sound of a printer or a golf tournament. Need I say more? And the next game on my hotly anticipated list is not so under the radar, but it's also not really a game, it's an expansion, and that is Root, the Marauder expansion. The expected release date of this is the second quarter of 2022, and few things bring me as much joy as a new box of Root goodies. Between the exciting faction variety, charismatic art by Kyle Farron, and colorful Leader Games production, Root and its several expansions never fail to capture my heart. The Marauder expansion is particularly notable in that it apparently offers an enhanced experience at lower player counts thanks to the new hirelings. So why is this expansion exciting? Well, some critters just want to watch the world burn. Such a sentiment can be said about the new faction, Lord of the Hundreds, an unhinged rat who incites torch-wielding mobs. Meanwhile, the Keepers of Iron are disciplined badgers on the hunt for ancient relics. What's not to love here? Also, I worked at a place called Badger Screen Printing, so badgers hold a special place in my heart. Speaking of exciting new games from Root designer Cole Worley, the next game on the list is John Company 2nd Edition, and it is hot on the heels of the Marauder expansion's scheduled release. It has a release date of June 2022. While this is only the second game to come from brothers Worley and their company Whirligig Games, the first one, PAX Premier 2nd Edition, is one of my favorite games ever. Thus, a meaty game of negotiation and politics from Cole is exactly the kind of thing that could easily become my favorite game of 2022 and possibly of all time. It's going to be a good summer of gaming, my friends. So why is John Company 2nd Edition exciting? Well, if gorgeous historical board game productions from a boundary-pushing game designer sound like your kind of thing, then Whirligig Games is a publisher you should follow. They've already proven that their games are a labor of love, and John Company 2nd Edition is set to please folks who enjoy deep, immersive, and dynamic political experiences. Next, let's talk about a game that is near and dear to my heart. It is Soda Smugglers, also expected to release in June of 2022. I can't believe we've had to stretch all the way to June to find a new Knizia game to be hyped about. But worry not, because the second half of the year should more than satisfy Knizia fans. These next three games we're talking about are ones that I've already played a ton of, but that's because we here at Bitewing Games are their publisher. Personally, I'm excited to see our vision for Soda Smugglers achieve its final form. Bottle cap tokens, hilarious bribing, and all. For people who want a quick, clever bluffing game that is dead simple to teach, Soda Smugglers should be right up your alley. You can even still pre-order the standard or limited deluxe edition by following the link on our website, bitewinggames.com. and be one of the first to own it. So why is Soda Smugglers exciting? Well, harmless, simple, and fast bluffing games are perhaps some of the best gateway and or filler games out there. Nothing breaks the ice better than witnessing a seemingly gentle person attempt to cross the border with a couple suitcases jam-packed with illicit soda bottles. And few things are as funny as watching the border guard fall for a bluff or a wily traveler shoot themselves in the foot with a mistimed double bluff. Now, along the same lines, Pumafiosi is another offering from Reiner Knizia and Bitewing Games, also expected in June. This one features a unique style of trick-taking where the second highest card wins the trick and slots their winning card into a push-your-luck style hierarchy. To top it all off, it features zany Puma Mafia characters galore. So why is Pumafiosi exciting? Similar to Ghosts of Christmas, here we have another wonky card game that slowly reveals layered strategies as you peel through the onion. This is a small game with a big payoff and how it rewards multiple plays. Plus, the Pumafia art and lore spread across the entire collection is simply a joy to explore. And finally, Hot Lead rounds out the Criminal Capers collection with a new twist on auctioning from the master designer of auction games himself, also coming in June. With the help of 19 illustrated investigators, you'll be undercover collecting evidence on criminal organizations. Just like the other two games, this one is quick, simple, and addicting. Again, if you're interested, you can pre-order through our website, bitewinggames.com. This is currently the best and only way to support Bitewing Games as a publisher and content creator. We love sharing and making games that bite. It's in the name, and we appreciate the support. So why is Hot Lead exciting? Those who appreciate auctioning games are likely fans of Kinezia's stone cold classics, including Raw, High Society, and Modern Art. Now, with Hot Lead, we were thrilled to discover that Reiner had funneled his mystical auction design powers into an even faster experience while giving the game its own distinct flavor. Furthermore, you get the best of a push your luck experience where the glorious triumphs feel amazing and the stinging failures are as quick as ripping off a band-aid. Either way, you're always hungry for another go with Hot Lead. Next, let's talk about another expansion expected to release in quarter 2 or 3-ish of 2022. We don't know much yet, but word on the street is that the upcoming expansion for Beyond the Sun provides more incentives to focus on the planet board, colonization and area control. But to be honest, anything that gives me more reasons to revisit this excellent tech tree bonanza of a Euro has my interest. So why is the expansion for Beyond the Sun exciting? Well, Beyond the Sun is one of those types of games that feels like it has endless possibilities, thanks to the uniquely unraveling tech tree. Adding more possibilities to those endless possibilities is a thrilling prospect that has me wondering what lies beyond the Sun. Now we're jumping into quarter 3, for sure, of 2022 with Ahoy. Ahoy is the next direct-to-retail game coming from Leader Games. This one is described as an asymmetric pirate strategy game for 2 to 4 players that plays in roughly 1 hour. 2 players will play as oppositional governments. One is insurgent, the other established, while the other 2 players act as smugglers, who influence the topology and value of the map that is being contested over. According to Leader Games, this one is already finished and heading to manufacturing. Why is that exciting? Folks who love the idea of root, but dread the baggage that the game comes with, such as the meaty teach, steep cost of admission, and more, can look forward to Ahoy being the more approachable design that scratches a similar itch. Next, we're going to talk about one last upcoming offering from Bitewing Games, that is Trailblazers, which hopefully will release in quarter 4 of 2022. Assuming we don't hit any significant delays, it's very possible that our next release after the Criminal Capers collection reaches tables before the end of the year. We recently unveiled the first details of Trailblazers by Ryan Courtney, and more juicy info will be trickling in over the coming weeks. Those who enjoy spatial puzzles will find much to love here, between the 3 solo modes, wide player count of 1 to 8, charming outdoor adventure theme, simple rule set with a high skill ceiling, and handy travel case. Be sure to subscribe to the Bitewing Games newsletter, you can do that through bitewinggames.com, to follow the game all the way to the second quarter Kickstarter launch happening this year. So why is Trailblazers exciting? Well, ever since my first play of the excellent Pipeline, I always thought it would be cool to see a game that really focuses in on and explores the possibilities of a pure spatial puzzle game based solely on Ryan Courtney's windy pipe domino tiles. Well, Trailblazers is that game. Trailblazers is to Pipeline as Patchwork is to A Feast for Odin. Here you can simply concentrate on constructing ambitious, exciting routes within a charming theme and colorful presentation that will appeal to anyone. Next, let's talk about Horseless Carriage, expected to release in quarter 4 of 2022. Publisher Splatterspellen is known for many strategic classics, including Food Chain Magnate, Bus, Indonesia, and the Great Zimbabwe. Fans of their designs have come to love the trademark Splatter traits of pure strategy, punishing decisions, brutal interactions, and deep gameplay. While details on Horseless Carriage are sparse, we do know that this is another economic game about creating and selling automobiles in the dawn of the industry. So why is Horseless Carriage exciting? Well, Horseless Carriage is the first entirely new game put out by Splatter since 2015's Food Chain Magnate. And with Food Chain Magnate being their highest ranked game and their most recent game, that means Horseless Carriage has big shoes to fill. Whether it lives up to those high expectations or not, Splatter fans can finally celebrate the end of a 7-year new game publishing drought. Now we're on to another big expansion expected to release sometime this year, Sidereal Confluence, Bifurcation. I was recently delighted to discover that one of my favorite high interaction games is getting an expansion this year. Thanks to a cross-country move and COVID, it's been trickier to get Sidereal Confluence to the table lately, especially where the game shines best with 5 or more players who enjoy wheeling and dealing. I'm hoping to dive deeper into this epic game of negotiation before this exciting expansion releases. But why is Bifurcation exciting? Well, Bifurcation is set to effectively double the variety of asymmetric species players can use during the game. It introduces a new variant to each of the 9 alien species in the game, meaning new mechanisms, new strategies, and new trading opportunities. Well, this next game is not an expansion, but it is a standalone sequel, My City: Roll and Write, expected to release sometime in 2022. Last year, I interviewed Dr. Knizia about his plans for a follow-up to the phenomenal legacy game, My City. You can find that interview in one of our old podcast episodes. It's actually our most popular one. Now, in that episode, he hinted there would be a sequel to My City, but it would explore new gameplay rather than retread the same ground. It turns out that sequel has been revealed as My City: Roll and Write. Now, from the box cover, we can gather that many of the core concepts have been carried over. The city sheet shows a very similar layout to the original game's board, including mountains, a river, rocks, and trees. The art also shows similar polyomino shapes and 3 different building types. Yet this version can play a wider range of 1 to 6 players and features a smaller and presumably cheaper box of 12 episodes rather than 24. The major question here is, how will the roll and write aspect of the game change things up? Will we see new dice introduced across the 4 chapters? I'm normally not one to get excited about a roll and write, but I'll make an exception for the follow-up to My City. So why else is My City: Roll and Write exciting? Well, those who play Knizia dice games would largely agree that Knizia understands how to make the most of dice. The man even wrote an entire book on dice games, for crying out loud. So the introduction of dice to the My City system means that these 12 episodes will likely have all kinds of new tricks up their sleeves. So while My City: Roll and Write aims to be a small, punchy game with a broad appeal, this next one is a wrecking ball of a niche game, and that is Crescent Moon, coming from Osprey Games, expected to release in 2022. If a meaty expansion to Sidereal Confluence isn't enough for you, then perhaps you'll be able to satisfy your negotiation cravings with Osprey Games' ambitious Crescent Moon here. This mammoth design apparently takes 2.5 to 3 hours to play, and can only be played with 4 to 5 players. You'll take on the role of a wildly asymmetric character who has unique objectives, actions, and powers in an area control competition of alliances, rivalries, and negotiations. Based on that description, fans of Cole Worley designs should also take note. So why is Crescent Moon exciting? From a publisher standpoint, putting out a game with such a narrow target audience, groups of 4 to 5 players who enjoy meaty, asymmetric games, is a tricky proposition. What this tells me is that publisher Osprey Games really believes in this project enough to take such a risk. Combine that with the fact that they've been putting out some excellent games recently, including Undaunted and Brian Baru, more on that game in a future episode, and suddenly this one, Crescent Moon, has the potential to be something truly special. Speaking of truly special games, this next one is a classic, Raw, expected to release hopefully in 2022. I think it'll be a Kickstarter though. Who knows when it'll come out, but eventually it will, and I will be so happy. Reiner Knizia fans won't have to wait too much longer, hopefully, for one of his most popular classics to make a triumphant return. We've finally seen a magnificent box cover from artist Ian O'Toole, and that's only the tip of what's bound to be an iceberg of stunning visuals and clean graphic design. We also know that 25th Century Games is aiming to make this the best production of Raw ever. So whether you own and love this fantastic push-your-luck auctioning design or not, the latest version of Raw should be on your radar. Why is that exciting? A new version of Raw, illustrated by Ian O'Toole, is like the Spider-Man No Way Home of board game team-ups. They're bringing back a classic, critically acclaimed, beloved experience. You know what I'm talking about, Doc Ock, Green Goblin, in the form of Reiner Knizia's Raw, and pairing it with something popular and exciting in Tom Holland's Spider-Man, also known as Ian O'Toole. From here on, we're talking about games that probably or definitely won't be released in 2022, but they're still relevant to this year for various reasons. So first on that list is The Queen's Dilemma. If you played the 2020 Kinderspiel nominee, The King's Dilemma, then you understand how much work went into this legacy game of tug-of-war politics. Thus, it's understandable why The Queen's Dilemma has been announced, but not given a release date yet. Although it does have box art, so who knows how far along they are. The big change here is that the tug-of-war resource tracks from The King's Dilemma are being replaced with a kingdom map where players control regions, gather resources, and develop their areas. I can't wait to see how this game of tense voting and impactful decisions is taken to the next level. So why is the Queen's Dilemma exciting? Well, for folks who were underwhelmed by the mechanical side of the King's Dilemma, such as dragging resource tokens up and down a trek, the Queen's Dilemma seems to be aiming for a more ambitious area control plus Euro experience. Beyond arguing and debating how the kingdom should be run, players will now get to see their decisions take effect on a map and feel even more invested in their slice of domain. Next, let's talk about Fit to Print, which is expected to release in 2023. While Fit to Print is not scheduled to release until next year, it's worth noting here because the game is coming to Kickstarter this year. Beyond coming from the increasingly popular creators of Calico, Cascadia, and Tiny Towns, Fit to Print caught my eye with the whimsical artwork by Ian O'Toole. One of my favorite movies of all time is Wes Anderson's Fantastic Mr. Fox, and this game box gives me very fantastic vibes of a Fox variety. Mr. Fox himself even works for a newspaper, so the game's theme is obviously a warm and welcome nod to that delightful stop-motion animation movie. Players will be racing to arrange the best front page of their newspaper in this real-time spatial puzzle game. So why is Fit to Print exciting? Well, for many gamers, Flatout Games has been on a hot streak of attractively approachable yet engaging publications, and Fit to Print is set to continue that streak. Bringing in an external design from the creator of Tiny Towns seems like a perfect match here, as Tiny Towns actually shares much in common with Calico and Cascadia. If you love any of these games, then Fit to Print should certainly be on your watch list. Next, let's talk about Amun-Re 20th Anniversary Edition, which is expected to release in 2023. This edition of Amun-Re is another new reprint of a Knizia auctioning classic, and it's likewise an upcoming 2022 Kickstarter that won't hit tables until next year. But even 20 years on from its initial publication, it remains strongly ranked in the top 500 board games of all time on BoardGameGeek. This new version will see the classic team-up of Vincent Dutrait art with Reiner Knizia gameplay, plus 3 entirely new expansions. So why is that exciting? Well, I recently acquired an older copy of Amun-Re, and it has proven to be a solid design that has been worth keeping around. Honestly, it's a mark of a good Euro, when I'd often rather play it over other Euros that are up to 20 years newer. That said, Amun-Re has widely been regarded as a game that is good primarily for 4 to 5 players. But it sounds like publisher Alleycat Games is aiming to improve the experience at lower counts with the help of an expansion, and that is certainly something to be excited about. And finally, we're going to wrap up this entire list, number 22 of my most anticipated board games of 2022 and beyond, with Arcs, which will release in 2023, but come to Kickstarter this year. So this is interesting. While Cole Worley was designing his latest ambitious strategy game, Oath, which I'm a huge fan of, he had many wildly intriguing design ideas that ultimately didn't end up in Oath. Arcs is the space theme exploration of those leftover ideas, set to come to Kickstarter this year. It's described as a short campaign game played over a few punchy episodes or one long session of 3 to 5 hours, with branching narratives that can be enjoyed across many campaign sessions. It's also easier to teach than both Oath and Roots. So why is Arcs exciting? Well, Arcs approaches the same question that was posed by 2021's excellent Brian Boru. How do you combine trick-taking with a strategy board game? According to Cole, Arcs answers this question in a very different and likely meaner way from Brian Boru. Any game that sounds like the love child of Oath and Brian Boru immediately has my attention. And there you have it, my most anticipated board games of 2022. Although who knows, we may be back here about halfway through the year in a part 2 version of this episode, where suddenly we know about a whole bunch more games coming out in the second half of the year that are also equally exciting. And some of those may even be coming from Bitewing Games. Well, at least to Kickstarter. Anyway, thanks for joining me today. My name is Nick Murray, and you've been listening to the Bitewing Games podcast.